been asked to do a commentary on these videos for the learner driver, pointing out things to be mindful of and why certain lanes are selected at certain times. So on this journey I'm travelling from the car park at the museum, at Queensland Museum, and heading towards North Lakes via Caxton Street, ICB, Hamilton and onto the Gateway. So the first thing we're looking at here is we're turning right from the middle lane, and the reason for that is we want to be in the left lane going across the bridge, Grey Street Bridge, and the reason for that is so that we're in the middle lane as we come up to the Milton Road turn off, because we won't be turning down Milton Road, we'll be turning down Caxton Street, which is the next left, and ideally you should be in the left lane for that. So as we go across the bridge, one thing to be mindful as we come up to Roma Street is that there's a couple of backpacker accommodation centres, and this intersection can be quite dangerous with a lot of people who are not familiar with the roads or even the country, so you have to be mindful of watching out for these people, and I don't recommend doing this when there's an event on, because it could be quite tricky with so many police and people around. So you can see we're in the lane second from left, and all the lanes are going around the corner onto Roma Street, and the left lane will be forced to turn left to go down Milton Road, which is why we're not in the left lane. As you can see, there are people changing lanes. There's the backpackers on the left. So it's a little bit a lot of people in cars in motion. So this intersection coming up at Caxton Street is quite busy. We're scooting into the left lane because we're turning left to go down Caxton Street. As we turn left, again there's a lot of people around, and it is a 40km/h zone. You will get a turn arrow, but even though you've got an arrow to turn, there could actually be people still crossing the road, so don't forget to give way to the people. So I'll be turning right at Hale Street to go down onto the ICB and heading towards Hamilton. So you want to keep on the right hand side of the road and not holding up too much traffic. As you can see, it's a very popular turn, so we've got probably 8 cars all turning down Hale Street. There's 2 sets of lights to get through. Make sure you don't queue through the intersection and block it, because there's a lot of traffic. As you go down this on-ramp, you can start indicating because we're going to merge with a lot of traffic. And as you can see, they're all moving at speed, but in most instances people will merge nicely at this point. I find it one of the better places where people will merge. So I've merged across and then gone across another lane into the middle lane, and I'm just slowing down to let this person in also, extending the courtesy because one day that might be me, and that's how you should drive. So we're heading up the hill. The 2 right hand lanes go down onto the ICB. I've had a look and I could move into this right hand lane, which I will do, because as we get to the bottom of this hill we will move across to the far right lane. So this is a good starting point. And also on the left you can see we have incoming traffic as well, so this is not a bad lane if you can get into it. As we come over the top of this hill, just be mindful that it is a 60 zone, and as you go down this hill you will be overtaken by a lot of other cars doing a little bit more than 60, shall we say. So just watch your speed as you go down this nice gliding slope. Now on your right, there's exit from a tunnel. So you got traffic coming that's doing, in the tunnel it was doing 80. They've been now asked to slow down to 70, so there's a chance that they haven't quite reached 70 kilometers an hour. And for the traffic that you're in, you've been doing 60 and now that you'll be increasing to 70, so it's quite dangerous because you've got merging traffic and you've got a difference of speed. So we want to go right across, so we're just coming in behind this car and then we're doing a second lane change to get onto the far side and accelerating up to 70 kilometers an hour. Also in the far left lane is the turn off to Hurston and the hospitals and Gympie Road, so it is often quite congested, so the right two lanes are often much better to continue if you're going down the next tunnel or you're going on to the OCB going out to Hamilton. Either way, the right two lanes are much better to get past this very busy section. So we're just about to go underneath the R&A showgrounds. The middle lane is often slow and queued because people are deciding which tunnel to go down. They could be going down the Clem Jones tunnel. They could be going to Lutwich. There's a lot happening in that middle lane and a lot of uncertainty. I've seen cars actually stop in that lane to read the signs, so be very careful with that one. So we're still doing 70, and there's the turn off if you want to use the tunnel and pay tolls, but today we're not. And there's the left turn to go down the Clem Jones tunnel, and the next turn off will be to Sandgate Road, which we're not doing, but keep in mind that it is a very busy turn as well, and a lot of traffic will go down onto Sandgate Road from here. So the left lane, particularly in the afternoons, is not always the best lane. As we come around this bend, we're still doing 70, but we're coming up to a 60 zone, and the signs are just the small standard 60 signs, very easy to miss. We're just passing them now. So you need to drop your speed down to 60. Needless to say, it's very easy to get caught up with the speed of the other traffic around you, but you need to keep that in mind. So there's that turn to go down to Sandgate Road. It's got a long turn, so which is really good, but it can get quite congested. Giving this truck plenty of room, I'm moving over to the left, making sure that we keep out of his way. And as we come round this corner, we'll be going down a dip in the road, and so just watch your speed as you go down the slope. And then as we come up the other side, it's always congested with traffic coming in from Breakfast Creek to join onto this road, so you'll end up with probably 5 lanes coming down to 4, and then I think we end up in 3, so you've got quite a congestion. The truckie's moving into what will be the middle lane, so I'm moving across onto the right hand lane because the right hand lane has less impact from incoming traffic. So on the left you can see we've got 2 lanes plus the 2 lanes that we're in, so we've got 4 lanes. I think we end up in 3 at the end. So there's a little bit of negotiation, people merging, and then we're coming up to a set of lights which you'll often get caught at. They're high frequency lights. So as we go through Hamilton, you may or may not know that Hamilton is a very large industrial area, so often trucks will be in any of the 3 lanes, but principally they'll be in the middle or right lane because they need to turn into that industrial area, or they're coming out of that industrial area. So it's really hard to pick which is the best lane. The left lane tends to be a little bit slower because you've got traffic, not just incoming from things like hotels and service stations, but you've also got people wanting to turn down Gurla Road and places like that. Going towards Hendra. So that lane tends to have a lot of traffic coming in and going out, therefore it's a little bit slower. The middle lane is not too bad, and the right lane, as I said, you may get caught with trucks wanting to eventually turn right. So this is a nice piece of road beside the river. Again, I would just caution you to make sure you watch your speed through this area, because it's very easy to get caught up in what everyone else is doing. It's not too much fun driving directly into the sun in the morning, but there you have it. So I'm keeping over to the right, giving this cement mixer as much space as he needs. I noticed that when we started from the lights he moved quite quickly, so I'm going to say he's either got no load on or he's got a small amount of concrete in that mixer. Or he might just be in a hurry to get where he's going. So eventually, in about 4 kilometres, we'll be moving across into the left lane so that we can turn off this road, Kingsley Smith Drive, and turn onto the Southern Crossway, which will then join up to the Gateway Highway going north. So at this point I'm quite happy to be just cruising in the right hand lane. It's moving pretty quickly and I don't have to worry so much about traffic congestion in that far left lane, but it does mean I have to move across eventually 2 lanes. We have a series of 3 or 4 lights here in fairly big intersections. When it's busy in the afternoons, just keep in mind not to queue across those larger intersections. When we get past the next set of lights, I'll be looking for an opportunity to start moving across the lanes. As you can see, that cement truck has moved on fairly quickly, so he's pretty keen to keep going. And that's one thing you want to avoid if you can at all possible, not pull in front of one of those trucks, because even though he's moving quite well, there is a lot of mass moving at speed, and that takes a lot of effort for them to slow down and stop. So they're not like a car that can stop in a very small amount of space. So here I am in pole position in the starting line. as I mentioned before, these intersections can be quite busy and they are quite large, so when it's a lot of traffic and on the other side, be very careful about proceeding across the intersection if there's not enough space on the other side. And as a learner driver, you should also remember that it's your responsibility to keep an eye on those lights and make sure that you only go when you get a green light for your lane and not a green light for a turn, which you're not doing. And you should keep an eye on that, otherwise you're going to get people frustrated behind you if you don't move off the mark fairly swiftly as soon as you get that green light. So we're moving along now and we've got a clear road in front of us, so it's just a matter of watching the mirrors. The car beside me, the cars behind me, to make sure that I pick my spot to move across into that middle lane and then into the next lane. So you can hear the beep went off because I indicated early that I wished to move into that middle lane, so everyone knew what I was doing. So just as that car was passing me, I set my indicator on, which car went into an alarm and said there's a car beside you, but I was coming into the space behind it. Coming up on our left is a TAFE college, Technical and Further Education College. Often cars are pulling in and out of the TAFE college at this next set of lights, so just be very careful with that because often the traffic is moving slowly through that area. And as we pass this engineering company, we're going to indicate left to go up the on-ramp up onto Southern Cross Way. This is a tricky intersection in so much as you don't have any lights, you have a giveaway line, and there's a lot of traffic comes through that intersection, industrial traffic, so trucks and utes and heavy vehicles and so on. Alright, we're jumping up onto the Southern Cross Way. It's a 90 zone. Try to get up to speed by the time you get to the top of the hill. Watch your mirrors, indicate early, merge across. Often you'll want to merge across into the right hand lane, and the reason for this is the cars that are currently on the Southern Cross Way when you join, the reason they are using this road is primarily because they're going to turn off at the next intersection, which is Hendra, or the following one, which is Geebung, or to go to places like the airport. But they've come off the M1 to be on this road, so therefore most of that traffic will be wanting to be in the left lane to turn off. We're not going to do that. We're going to join on to the M1, which means that we want to keep in the right hand lane so that we are not held up and we're not holding them up. So you can see we're doing 90 and we're overtaking most of that traffic in that left lane because that's where their heading is off. There's often speed detection devices along this road because it's very easy to once again to get caught up and not be mindful of your speed. So you can see most of the cars have turned off there to go to Hendra for various reasons, whether it be the airport or industrial area and so on. Now the car in front of me has moved into the left lane, which is what you would normally expect. However, we're going to stay in the right lane because as we come down the other side of this hill, we have a lane coming in. Normally this traffic is joining to eventually go to the gateway, to the M1. Today we don't have any traffic, but ordinarily you would expect quite a few cars to come in there, and there's not a lot of space for that traffic to merge. And the other thing is, as I mentioned before, we have another turn off coming up here to go to Geebung, and so cars will often be in that left lane and turning off. So I suspect, for example, this truck will be turning off there because he's on this road. And both of those vehicles are turning off. So now we have nothing ahead of us and nothing beside us, so we move across into the left lane as where we should be. And we'll continue in that left lane until we join the highway. On our left we have an on-ramp coming in. These are vehicles that are heading towards the gateways, so normally they will move at a reasonable speed because they're coming into a 90 zone and heading towards a 100 zone. So normally you're fairly right to stay in the left lane because they'll be travelling at speed. So as we come up to this left bend in the road is where we will merge into a single lane. It's a very long merge and we are moving at a reasonable speed and heading for a 100 zone, so you don't have to panic to jump into the right hand lane. Like I said, it's a very long merge lane, so you can pick and choose your opportunity to move across into the right. It just keeps going and going and going, so I would suggest running that until it runs out and time your positioning so as you're in front or behind of vehicles in that right hand lane. As you can see, we've got a truck and a car on the M1. Currently I'm actually still doing around about 90 kilometers an hour, and this car in the right hand lane has been doing 90 holding up the truck and is just starting to speed off. So the truck's been left behind and now I can move between that car and the truck. Now that this car has sped up, I will continue to follow it in the middle lane. As you can see, we've got a truck in the right hand lane which is doing a little bit better speed. And we're coming up to a ute which is travelling under speed. So at this point we're doing about 95 to 97 kilometers an hour. We're still under the limit. And the truck has not moved across into the middle lane as he should, which is disappointing. So I'll move across into the middle lane because I finished the overtaking procedure. And you can see that because there's not much in front of me, I'm actually catching up to the truck, which is not doing 100 kilometers an hour in the right hand lane. Should also keep in mind that trucks really don't or can't see well behind them. So if you've ever driven a truck, you'll know that you really can't see much behind you. You can see a fair way back, but in the vicinity of the back of your truck, you just really can't see much at all. Some trucks have additional mirrors so they can see beside them, but you shouldn't count on that, and you shouldn't count on the truck always noticing that you're there. So the position I'm in here, halfway down or halfway beside this truck, is one of the most dangerous positions you can be in because he may or may not see you there, and he may or may not choose to change lanes and not realise that you're there. So if at all possible, I suggest you either hang back or move forward quickly past the truck rather than sitting not so much in their blind spot, but in a spot where they may or may not notice that you're there, and as it's very hard for them to see around their vehicles. Ideally he shouldn't really be in that right hand lane. Because I went in front of him and he hasn't got anything really much in front of him, he's now decided to speed up a little bit. when you're running cruise control, it's a lot easier in these situations to maintain the speed. You can see the car in front has noticed the truck in the right hand lane is travelling slowly, so he's moved across into the left to get around this dark car in front of us in the middle lane. So there's not a lot of difference between these vehicles as far as speed, but if you've got a long way to go, it can make a difference, I guess, into how long your journey takes. So you can see we're all catching this dark car in the middle lane, which is fine for them to be in the middle lane, that's okay. So because I've got those two sitting there, I'm going to follow the white car into the left lane and overtake down the left hand side. Now this is perhaps the most dangerous manoeuvre you'll see, and that is the truck has got a car behind him and he's also in the far right lane, and there's a good chance that that car that's following him will move into the middle lane, but I also want to be in the middle lane and I'm beside the truck. So I'm going to turn into that lane, and now that truck would be completely unaware that I'm there, so it's a very dangerous position. And it's also dangerous because at the same time the car that was following the truck has also joined me in the middle lane. And as fate would have it, the middle lane has started to slow down, so I've now swung across behind the truck, and the car that was behind him is in the middle lane still. So it's a case of not being frustrated with doing this sort of driving at speed. It's good to be cautious and pick your opportunities and don't push it, because at this sort of speed it doesn't take much to get untidy and to make mistakes, and you don't want to be making mistakes. So in about 2 or 3 kilometres we'll be dropping speed down to a 90 zone as we come around the bend at Bracken Ridge. Not everybody will comply and lower their speed to go around that corner, but it's advisable to do so. And here is the car that was formerly following the truck, and the truck's moved across into the middle lane, which is where he really should have been, and so that car has chosen to go into the left lane to go around him. So we're coming up to the 90 zone. As we come around this corner, there's a couple of interesting things to note. You've got a turn off lane at the top of the next hill going to Bracken Ridge, and you also have an incoming lane, and the incoming lane, although it's quite long, the actual length of time that they have to join the highway is very short. So in the afternoons you'll find that that really impacts the speed, and so you'll get this congestion, this concertinaing of traffic. So up ahead on the left is the turn off lane to Bracken Ridge. Not a lot of traffic goes that way, but that sort of frees that lane up a little bit. Not much, but a little bit. The ute has popped into the right hand lane in front of me, not really sure why. Maybe he's thinking that this congestion of this incoming traffic at Bracken Ridge might impact the speed, so he's preemptively jumped into the right hand lane. So this is this short lane where they get to join into the highway. It's pretty short to come in to try and join on to something where people are travelling at 100 kilometres an hour. But anyway, So I've moved across into the left-hand lane because as I come over the top of the on-ramp onto the M1 onto Bruce Highway, it is an 80 zone, and you'll have people contesting that right-hand lane as they try and negotiate to merge into the Bruce Highway traffic. So I always like to get into the left-hand lane and let them sort themselves out, and then in a lot of cases I end up overtaking them anyway once we hit the 100 zone on the other side of the Pine River. So we've got some signs warning us that there's roadworks ahead and the speed limit will be dropped to 80. So you can see even at this hour of the day there's quite a lot of traffic heading north. So this is where we drop down to 80 kilometers an hour, and we'll maintain this speed until the other side of the Pine River. So as you can see, that left-hand lane actually is relatively clear. So as we cross this bridge, we'll be then doing 100, and I'll be overtaking a lot of these cars. The van has had the same thought, he's just jumped across. I'll go a little bit further before I move across. Anyway, safe travels, enjoy driving.